Yeah.
This is related to that. I use the regular irrigations that everybody else does, but I also use a laser at the end.
Okay.
I didn't know if they'd done any studies yet or not. I've been using it for about 10 years.
Oh, wow, you're really a what do you call it, an early adapter and a front
Yeah.
runner and a charger.
I don't know about that, but
No,
I
you
do
are.
know
I can
that-
tell you from being around the world a lot. How many people got a laser? Not a lot of them 10 years ago.
Well, I've had them for about 14 or 15 years, but I've been using them for about the last 8 to 10 years during endo. And I use it like 0.7 watts for about 30 seconds a canal, and I've found a lot less reinfection rates doing that.
Lasers are going to play, probably I could just say this, because it would be a long discussion, because there's a lot of things happening with hard tissue lasers, soft tissue lasers.
This is diode. That's
Okay, and you know,
ND-YAG.
what we need probably more than anything is a protocol. We have a lot of people
I agree.
like Cliff up on stage going, I use a side-firing 980 nanometers of light because I said so. And then two people go home and do it.
Right.
What we need is the science, the evidence, and it needs to be collaborated in different universities, and that'll tend to point us towards the edges of the truth. And then I think you're going to see lasers play a huge role in the future, because you know the idea though is the laser light has to get to the microorganisms.
Right. Well, that's why I was asking you, because I've used it, and I thought, well, I've been using it this way because it seems to work, but I didn't know if you knew anything more than that.
There's a lot of work on lasers. There's a lot of evidence emerging on lasers, and it's interesting. The ones that are most exciting, Ben could tell you a lot about PIPs and photoactivating disinfection. There's a lot of work in Europe being done on this. We got to get the price down. We got to make it affordable, because the pushback on a guy that won't buy a microscope is he going to buy a laser? No chance. So what my job is as a teacher is to encourage,
Right.
and you can't antagonize and encourage at the same time. So
Yeah,
you
my
already
first
lost
laser
him.
was like $20,000, and now they're like $5,000.
You can get a Picasso like in that range.
Right.
So I think we need protocols, and I think, you know, I was talking to Paul Lambert. He's done a lot of work in lasers. He's doing like a long-term study right now. And so there's about 300 reagents you could squirt into a prepared canal. And it turns out for Paul, he's a man of science, so I'm more of a clinical guy, but it's polonium chloride. So the polonium chloride, he calls it paintball endodontics, but the polonium chloride goes out into these inaccessible areas, and it either gets into the cell wall for sure, or it gets to the nucleus, but it tags them, it marks them. So when you put your wand in there, the light is attracted right to that tagged bacterium and implodes it. So the whole key is, the assumption is that the reagent gets to the microorganisms. Then we'd have to start having a whole discussion about what? What did the Navy tell us years ago about our water lines?
Yeah.
Okay? So we have biofilms. And then you start to look about biofilms, and it gets to be really complicated. You know, when we, remember that guy, John Thomas, we had that pre-congress in Philadelphia? And he's this virologist, and he was talking about, like, when Ben and I went through, I'm making this up, there were like 8 identifiable bugs. And then like a few years later, there were 15. And like today, I think he said there's over 30. And so we're only limited by the sensitivity of our measuring devices to see what's in there. But we still have to get to them, because these biofilms, they're very clever. These populations of bacteria, they have quark communications, so they speak to each other, and when the populations get too big, they'll divide. This will swim through platonic movement into another area of the canal. They'll set up residency. Then they secrete sticky polysaccharides, and that's like the moat around the castle to protect the bacteria. And so ultrasound and lasers has been hypothesized to be very potent at destroying these populations. And ultrasound's been shown to be viable. So you're doing some good stuff, and I wouldn't discourage you at all. I mean, I don't think too many people in the room are doing this, and you are. So maybe your protocol will shift as more science comes out, but I think it's good. And you said that you subjectively feel you have probably less flare-ups, and that's, you know, maybe
Less
scientific
effects.
guys will tell you, oh, that's a low ball piece of evidence, Cliff. But you know what? When you start to practice for 20 or 25 years, and all you can't talk about him or you, all you can talk about is your personal experience, but you see trends, don't you?
Yes.
And I think we shouldn't dismiss common sense.
Well, I do know that I have a lot less sensitivity post-op. I mean, almost zero.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't have the soreness or anything anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on, but I just know that what I'm seeing.
I think it's good. I mean, I'm learning. I'm still learning a lot about lasers. I have a laser in my office. I've had it for a few years, but you know, I'm doing monkey business because I don't have a paper that says this is how it looks when I'm done.
Right.
So you have your impressions, then of course you have to read papers to see what others are doing. But there's some groups around the world that are making big pushes in laser. And Neil Keeshan's doing a lot of work.
Right.
And Lambert's group, and this Italian guy in Scottsdale's doing stuff, and you gave a paper on it. So
DeVito, yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff on lasers. Probably going to be a very, very important part of clinical endodontics in the future.